The Unofficial Lounge with Ashante, Cravon, and Monty. We're here to give you the insight into some of the biggest plays you remember, involving the people wearing the stripes. We look at the grit it takes to become an official while exploring the history of officiating with the people who made it. It's more than black and white.
All right, we started recording.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Unofficial Lounge. This is a very special show today. We are going international, people. I mean, the show just keeps growing and growing. I remember the first time we met this gentleman was in Baltimore. Me and Ashanti was there, and all of a sudden we was like, wow, people are actually listening to this show, and it actually goes further than the United States. So please welcome to the show the traveling. I mean, he has more frequent flyer miles than anybody this year, seen more football games than most of us officials, and he doesn't even live in the country. The traveling Australian, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cravon. It's my pleasure to be here.
Hold up, Cravon. He only recognized you in Baltimore. He
Oh,
recognized the
Cravon's
voice.
Yeah. Hey, Ashanti. Hey, Monty.
How you doing, sir?
He only recognized you, Cravon.
The
voice.
No. He recognized me, and then he goes, "Oh, are you Ashanti?"
He only recognized you.
But no, we're happy to have you on the show. It's we not only did you and I meet in Baltimore, but then a few months later, which we'll talk about, we met up in Cleveland because you were just traveling all around the country. But hey, take this moment and please just tell us a little about, what do you do in Australia when you are home, and a little bit about home life while you're there down under.
Sure. I'll call it my professional career is in IT. So I've been in the IT industry for years on end and changing roles and jobs and whatnot. But I had when I was in high school, I actually started officiating soccer. Funnily enough, there was a couple of opportunities there to do a year or two there before I finished high school. And then when I went to university, in my third year, my older brother, who then started to attend university, got me interested, and we found a local American football club. So within Australia, all of our American football, all of our sporting teams actually are more club-based as opposed to aligned with high schools and universities. So he got me interested in playing. We started playing, and then about my third year, within playing, the clubs have a responsibility to provide officials for each game. So within our club, we had a pre-season training for club officials. I attended that, and then just went from there and loved every moment of it. I've been playing sports since I was 5, essentially, and finding opportunities to do various bits and pieces. For a couple of years there, I played rugby on a Saturday, soccer on a Sunday during our winter season, then would play American football in the summer, and did that for 4 or 5 years. Just generally just having a lot of fun with sport. We might touch on a bit later, but during that journey, wife and kids come along. I only have a couple of them.
You don't have a couple.
He don't have a couple people. He
has
5.
He has several.
So, I have 5 kids. They all came along, actually, funnily enough, towards the extension of my officiating career. So I started officiating back in Australia with around about 2001, and then for the next 10 or so years, I would be playing a game and either officiating before my game or after. And when I say before or after, literally we had half an hour between the game to either get ready from playing, get off your game gear, get your officiating gear on and get on the field, or the other way around, where you get out of your officiating gear, get your game gear on, and then get on the field and play.
So you were still playing football yourself?
Yeah, I only finished playing 2 years ago. And last year we didn't have a competition locally in COVID, and that was probably the first year that I stopped playing American football over the last 21 years I think I played. here in Australia.
Oh, did you just say how many years did you just say?
21.
21 years of tackle football.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
What position do you play?
I being 6'2", 6'3", and with the varying skill sets of here, I was fluctuated between a receiver, a tight end, along the offensive line. Even during the season 2 years ago, filled in a whole game as quarterback. Played soccer growing up, so I filled in at kicker and punter, and generally just went, coach, wherever you need me, put me on the field. I'll play wherever.
Just put me in, coach. I'm ready.
Yep, exactly. And I got to a point, 2 years ago, after filling in meaningful snaps as a quarterback. I was, one of the, I guess the proud thing was I could then say I've played meaningful snaps at every single position on the field: offense, defense, special teams, long snapper, all that sort of stuff. And throughout my playing career, it's probably the most proud thing that I look back on, just being that team player, to be able to just, wherever you need me, fill me in.
Hey,
go with that attitude.
I thought he was going to be the international Al Bundy and score 4 touchdowns. Back in my day.
We have something similar here. Is it the same thing there as your club sports? Our semi-pro is kind of you pay to play. Is it that same thing with clubs where you're paying to play?
Similar structure, but we don't. There's no pay to play. We actually pay to be able to play. We don't get paid to play. Everybody pays their own registration, their own costs, has to buy their own gear. So obviously,
and then sign that waiver.
Yep, and a majority of the time it's ship all the gear in from the US. So by the time you double the price with postage, because trying to ship shoulder pads and helmets from places like the US isn't cheap. So
wow.
That has to be different now. You going from officiating the game, playing the game, to officiating the game, to where they talking trash about you on the field, and now they saying, "Oh, you even suck." Like, is that even the trash talk? You bad as a player, you even worse as an official. Because that's how. Is that trash talk there?
Oh, plenty of trash talk, and a lot of the times, with the way that our competitions are structured, we have competitions in most of our state capital cities around the country. And every year they'll pick an all-star team from that competition, and we'll play against the all-star teams from the other state. So I was fortunate enough to be in 4 of those from 2003 to 2008. We ended up playing every 2 years. And as part of that, obviously, you then get to know the players that are within your competition from playing with them at the All-Star. And then you then have to go and officiate them on a weekend. So 3/4 of the competition that I officiated, I'd played with over the years. So it's an interesting dynamics. It can have its positives because they've played with you, they get you gain their respect and their confidence in how you officiate the game. But then also there's the jovial smack talking that ends up going on because you've officiated and played with them.
So how much yelling do you do at the officials when you're a player?
I try not to, but it's always interesting.
When they go mess up a rule or something, what do you do?
Oh,
you guys are screwing that up, right?
I do it in a diplomatic way, but yeah.
Everyone says they're doing it diplomatically.
Now, what set of rules do you guys go by? NC2A or professional?
So outside of the US, there's a federation called International Federation of American Football, or IFAF for short, and they look after the rules and regulations of American football. And the rules are based on NCAA, so they're 90-95% NCAA based. There's some variations around skill set. We have a provision for a thing called a running clock. So if the score gets too far blown out, instead of still doing the stop-start clock the rest of the game, we have the provisions to be able to just start it and let it run out. So
every official loves a running clock, boy. Woo,
oh, absolutely.
Get this bad boy overwhere.
And
That's
a
it.
running team.
Oh yes, gotta love it, boy.
Our competition here is August to December, so that's leading into our summer.
Ooh.
So the end of our competition, we can get the 90 to 100 pushing days. So every time you get out there and it's a running clock towards you in the game, you're looking forward to that running clock to be able to get out of the heat. So.
But then you got to go take your pads off and go put your officiating shirt on and do it all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one game I remember. I was there I officiated 4 games prior to, and did played a game afterwards. We have 3 competitions here in Australia. We have we call it our Colts, which is our youth, which is 16 to 19-year-olds. We have a women's competition and we have a men's competition. With the Colts and the women's, they generally run them a little bit shorter in duration than the 7-man football or 9-man football, depending on the numbers for the season. So on this particular day, it was a 95-degree day. I remember when I arrived in the morning, it was a 5-minute walk from the car to the field. By the end of the day, after doing 4 games, a couple of the women's and Colts games earlier, doing one of our division men's games, and then playing my game, I think it took me 25 minutes to walk back to the car after the last game of the day. So it was a long day on that one. And we try to keep the officials to maybe just doing 2 or 3 games on a day. Obviously, 4's a bit long, and it was just a requirement on those days. But generally, I'd probably be doing officiating 2 games and playing mine in amongst it somewhere, either before or after, and doing that for.
Now, what made you start your journey over here to the U.S. and getting even more involved in officiating?
So back in 2012, with our All-Star games, the way that they go, they're every 2 years, and they were week-long camps. So you'd go in for 10 days, and it was with football. You'd go in, you'd have a game, you'd have a couple of days of practice and scouting, and then do another game. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of the national championship games for up to 2008. The 2010 season, I didn't make the All-Star team. So then I went to our local officials and went, "Hey, can I officiate it?" And they turned around and went, "Yeah, you can't use one against the other, so you can't. You have to sit out that one." So it was it was a bit of a reality, I guess, just a reinforcement for me. So then in 2012, I went, "Well, I'm not going to play. I'll start officiating," and started officiating at these All-Star games. And, over the years, doing those All-Star games, officiating, and then doing officiating of, we'd have 1 year we'd have a Division 1 competition, All-Stars, and then the next year we'd have our youth. So it would sort of rotate around, and so I'd be changing the opportunities every year. And the person that I'm always, I'm always looking for opportunities of getting better.
Okay.
And within our local competitions, we didn't have film back in those days. I was one of the more experienced within our competition, so I didn't have anybody there to do evaluations and feedbacks and those sort of things. So any opportunities that I had to come and do these All-Star level games, we call them our national championships,
Okay.
I was jumping at the bit to be able to do those. And so over the years, I was able to do quite a few of those. And then in 2018, at the start of 2018, there was a World Cup for the youth. So it was 6 nations around the world all coming together to play for a world title. There was a team from the US. It was mainly made up of Division 2, Division 3, JUCO level players.
Okay.
We had a team from Canada. Yeah. We had a team from Canada and a couple of from Europe. And because Australia qualified as a playing nation, we could send a contingent of officials down as part of the crew.
Okay.
So I was fortunate enough to be chosen to go to that. That was held in Mexico in 2018. And then being in that environment, getting to know There was 25, 30, I think about 25 officials from all around the world, a couple from the US, a couple from Canada, and a majority from Europe, all overseen by Bill Lamonian. He
Okay.
was the ultimate supervisor. So being in that environment and just getting the feedback and evaluations and the opportunity of growth and being able to ask all those sort of questions, I'm looking at where can I get more opportunities? What can I do to get better? How can I improve? And so at that tournament, I met a guy by Frank Christensen, who is head of the training in IFAF in Europe. So he does a whole bunch of training materials and helps the guys out. So after Mexico, I reached out to him and just went, "Hey, do you have another tournament coming up? Do you have opportunities to come over?" And I'm just happy just to come and sit in, watching your meetings and just learn. So I was reaching out to Bill. I'm like, "Hey, do you have any camping clinics that you recommend?" And he's like, "Oh, hey, there's the one at Sioux Falls that he's part of." He goes, "That'd be great for the level that we're looking at. It's a high school camp. It's more around mechanics and rules." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." So I started finding information about that, reaching out, trying to register, and then this is for the 2020 camp. And as we know, in 2020, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, our government just said, "All right, borders are shut. Nobody can leave the country, and nobody can come in unless you have a valid
Right.
reason." So then that obviously meant, well, I'm stuck here in Australia for until the borders open. So when towards the back end of last year, which is 2021, they're starting to talk about opening up the borders again. I'm like, all right,
Right.
where can I get to?
How fast
can I go?
how fast can I get on the plane?
Yeah, exactly. So they started, announcing that borders will be starting to open in November with, these regulations. You can do this, you can do that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to just basically let me know when I
Right.
freely travel, so I don't have to quarantine. And I think it was, January or something was freely open. So then I started, reaching out to some of the contacts that I've got, that I've had over in the US, just doing various, podcasts, your podcast, the Rule 11 podcast, the guys that do pure officiating, and just asking the question. Got some good camps to go to.
So what was your first camp you attended here in the States?
So that was this year. It was
so
Tom
that
Beard.
was your first one over there with us.
That was my first camp. Yeah. And for me, it was a phenomenal experience. I went there with the mindset of, I just want to go see where I would fit in skill wise, but just get a feel for the officials over there. And then take what I can learn from that and bring it back to here. The camp started with the talk from Dwayne Haight, and then the talk from Ron Talbot. And Dwayne had probably been speaking for 5 minutes, and I went, "I'm coming back next year." So this is exactly what I
gave
wanted.
the sale.
Exactly what I needed.
Sales pitch.
Got them signed up.
Yeah,
right,
he
exactly.
got the timeshare.
Exactly. So how many camps did you attend total your first trip over? Just
One.
Tom Beard's?
Yeah, so I flew from Sydney to Dallas to Baltimore for the 2-day camp.
Oh, wow.
Back home again.
Okay.
So yeah, that was just a flying visit. It was an opportunity to come to a camp. I'll come over.
So you spent almost as much time in the air as you did in Baltimore. Okay.
Yeah. I think it was 28 hours from when I left Sydney to when I got to the hotel in Baltimore. I got there a day early. When I travel, I like to travel and give myself a day at the start just to either adjust or deal with travel delays. And then obviously it was another 28 hours back home again. So it was a.
So you said when you came up, so how did you feel the differences as far as teaching in Australia as opposed to what you got at the Tom Beard's camp as far as the instruction?
So obviously, the big thing is experience, and the experience level that all the officials, the clinicians have, and the professionalism of being at the higher levels. Having the ability to be on the field, have a clinician behind you and in your ear, giving you some tips that you can implement live is it's so invaluable. It's incredible. I was fortunate enough for the game that I was officiating. I was able to do 2 quarters. So most people only
Right.
got 1 quarter in the game, but
Well, you deserve a whole game coming 28 hours.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
so I was fortunate enough to be able to have 2 quarters. So I had the second quarter and the fourth quarter of my game. So we and the other center judge had the first and third. So we obviously did the first 2 quarters, had half time, and our clinician could then give us some feedback and go, look, in the second half, I'm looking at, I want you to implement X, Y, and Z. And to be able to then go out and concentrate on those and then have him turn around and go, hey, look, these are the four or five things I wanted you to work on. I could see you worked on all 4 of them. So, he was happy from that aspect. But it also showed that I was coachable, fish. And that's what I wanted to go for. I wanted to go there and get coachable. Hey, look, if they turn around and say, hey, you're horrible, you got to do this, this, and that, I'm like, cool, fine, just give it to me. Be as honest and as brutal as you can, because otherwise you don't get better. But the thing that really blew me away from Baltimore was obviously we had the first 2 talks from Ron and Dwayne, and then they went, oh, hey, we'll get somebody up who's traveled. They do a scholarship for the officials that travel the furthest. They go, hey, we've got a guy from Mexico. We've actually got a crew down in Brazil. Hey, we've got a guy from Australia. I went, okay, cool. So I walked down to the stage, and I was probably 5 yards away from Jonah up at the MC, and he goes, hey, by the way, can you tell us Football Australia? And I'm just like, okay. I was, I'm in front of whatever there was, 50, 60 NFL officials, high-level Div 1, 250 campers. To then give a quick, really brief story of my journey and what I wanted to get out of camp, opened up opportunities for the rest of that weekend, because I had people come out going, hey, you're the guy from Australia, I've always wanted to go, or you're the guy from Australia, I've been, and it was that immediate icebreaker, which allowed me to, obviously then talk to and get to know and network with a lot of other.
Nice. So it seemed like you had the right mindset coming to that camp, as others are looking to get to move on. You look to get better, and you took that experience. So what did you take from that camp when you went back home to try to implement to guys like, hey, these are some tips I picked up? Did you give them in a positive way, or did you say, hey, y'all messing up, you need to do this? Ron Tober told me this.
Yeah, Ron Tober. I was saying about
right. I was talking Ron Tober.
Right. Super Bowl referee. I don't know about the rest of y'all.
Yeah, Jonah Monroe told me this,
Yeah, you walk up and you go, hey, you know what? We do it this way over in the US. You got to do it that way. Now, we all know that feedback delivered the right way gets the best results. So leveraging
except when you're talking to Ashanti.
It's got to be brutal.
I'm not brutal. It's just honest. Hey.
But being able to take back things, even just minor things, I guess minor fundamental things like stances and where you line up and where your initial keys are looking, how you approach, dead ball officiating, how you deal with players that are still at each other after the ball, making a presence on the field. Those, I guess the soft skills of officiating. Yes, we can talk about rule books, and you can know and understand your rules. But if you don't have the presence out in the field or be able to recognize when things are boiling up, that's a lot of the things I took out of that camp is, getting the presence, recognizing what you're seeing, and getting the immediate feedback from the clinicians was nice. Awesome.
So you flew over for that. You went back home, and then you ventured back to the U.S. What was the reason for that? And
came back?
Yeah.
I've come back a couple of times.
Right. Exactly.
So I then looked at because I've been from Mexico. The guys in Europe had heard about Rule 11, the Rule 11 podcast that the guys have been doing. So I'd started listening to that, and they started talking about pure officiating side and participating in pure officiating. So I've been on with a guy from pure officiating for probably for about 6 to 8 months by then. And so they started putting out their camp.
Okay.
And I went, oh, more camps. I'll, have a look at opportunities. So I started looking at a camp that they had in New Orleans. And then I was looking at coming back to State Council as well, which is in June. And the way it was structuring, it was going to be maybe looking at doing a week or two in the US, going back to Australia for a week or two, and then coming back again for a couple of camps towards State Council. But then the El Paso camp, Zombie camp, had a slight change of date. And then the guys at the Pure Officiating also brought out a camp in Boise, and it was on the blue field. And I went, hey, anyone that knows football knows how iconic that blue field is. If there's an opportunity for me to get on there, even on a camp scrap out, I'm going. So I was talking to my wife about it, and it was like, do I go for 2 weeks? Do I come back home for a week? Do I go back? And she's like, well, why don't you just stay there? It'll be easier for me and the kids if you just stay there. That way you're not disruptive at home. And I'm like, I don't have to be told twice. Can I book the flights?
Wow. How fast can I book these flights? I'm out. Wow.
Just go. Just go.
Right. It's going to be easy for the rest of us. Bye.
Okay. So you said something about the iconic blue field. The only time to go with the boys is in the summertime. Any other time that is miserable, right, Craylon?
Oh, yes. And once you get to like September 20th, the Boise's out. It's too doggone cold out there. No, thank you. I think we had a game. It was like the second week of the season one year, and we were already in long sleeves, but we kicked off like at 8:30 at night. It was terrible. Wind was howling. It was freezing out there, and it was like September 15th.
The camp we did, it was a night camp, and even once the sun went down, the breeze coming through the stadium was like, oh, it's a cool breeze coming through the stadium, and it was June, July, whatever it was. So.
You mentioned some earlier about visa restrictions. What's some of the restrictions that you had to deal with travel?
Well, we have Australia in the US has a visa waiver program which allows us to travel over there for a period of time for tourist reasons or for work reasons, but you're not allowed to actually do any paid work over in the US. So I can go over and say, hey, I'm going to.
You ain't got to worry about that with officiating.
Them under the table hot water games ain't gonna count.
So they allow you to go over and discuss and organize things like contracts and those things, but you can't actually do any paid work. And you're allowed to do that for up to 3 months of a time, maximum of 6 months of the year.
Okay.
So the trip that I did first, it ended up being, originally it was going to be about 7 weeks, with the way that the New Orleans Pure Officiating Camp was the first one, the State Council Camp was the last one. And in amongst those, there was a period of 2 or 3 weeks where there was no camp. And when I travel, I tend to look for what sporting events are on that I can go to and experience and do those sort of things. And looking around, as Cravon, you'll know, the USFL was on.
Right.
And I went, it's a football trip, and I'll just go and be based in Birmingham, and I'll just go and watch football and watch
beautiful city of Birmingham.
So you was the only one fan at every game?
Yeah, pretty much.
The one fan at every game.
Because that's all it was, unless it was a Birmingham game.
And it was fun.
Yes.
So where did you stay in Birmingham?
I just stayed in a hotel near the airport. Just to
Okay.
make it convenient. So I just ended up finding somewhere that was relatively cheap, and it was relatively cheap from all aspects, but it was.
Oh, by the airport?
Yeah, it was something that
Yeah.
was close and cheap. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, by that airport, boy.
Yeah.
Woo.
yeah, I went for a couple of walks and went, yeah, probably might want to be a bit more careful when I'm out walking.
Yeah, that wasn't a good idea.
Yeah,
Right at airport.
I hope you was out walking in the daytime. Not at night.
Yep.
Yeah. Not by that airport. No.
It's a lovely city
to visit. For
So,
sure.
Greg, this is a lot of work you putting in, a lot of traveling. What's the ultimate goal?
Officiating in the US.
Officiate what starting at what level? Just
Wherever I can start and get to wherever I can get to. As I've mentioned to everybody since that I've spoken to since Tom Beard, I just want an opportunity to come over. The professionalism, the evaluations, the film reviews, all of that feedback, and just be able to push myself to become the best official that I can be, and then as well as that, become the best person I can be, and everything that I take from that and everything that I learn, bring back to Australia, or use the contacts that I've got in Australia and pass it all on and build up officiating here.
Now, Greg,
hold on.
Wait,
that man don't get no applause for that, Monty. That man don't get no applause for that. Like,
we want to apologize, everybody. Monty's computer is having some troubles.
That was real inspirational.
That was real inspirational. But
that's something I said
like
when I started. I want to be the best person, if Brendan Fisher is going to bring the best out of me.
Yeah, but now we know that was just a lie from you. We actually believe it from him. So now we don't like to get in people's pockets too much. Okay, but I just got a question for you. In Australia tax laws, are you able to write some of this stuff off?
Well,
don't get them caught up, Cravon. Watch your words. Watch your words. See that, Cravon? This incriminating. Watch your words.
In Australia, 3 years ago, I ended up leaving a full-time job that I had. I started my own company as myself, contracting out my IT services. So the advantage of that is I'm the owner, I'm the director of the business, so business expenses can be used for whatever
I'm with you.
So
because when you're here, you're still working, you're just working remotely.
Yeah.
Okay. But now if you come over and you start working games, you get assigned, you're not allowed to collect a check because of the visa?
I can't collect a check, correct.
Oh,
so man. I can work for my my Australian company while I'm in the US, doing the day-to-day work, but I can't do any additional work on top of that. So I can't do any.
Well, like Monty said, football, this don't pay.
You ain't gonna worry about that just yet.
Don't worry, you already.
So you're saying about you're gonna bring all this stuff back to Australia, and I see that is this a website that you created, the Sports Collaboration?
Yes.
And is that your primary means of distributing all your information?
Not primary means, but it's another avenue that I've got. So I started, it's probably 12 to 18 months ago. I was thinking of ways of being able to just grow knowledge and grow the information of officiating, and not just within American football, but just all officials. How I can, I guess, publicize the good side of things, and how you can use officiating between professional lives and personal lives, and intertwine all the skills you learn in amongst them. So being American football being my sport, and knowing some of the guys in Europe, and we know how difficult the rule book study can be, I reached out to Frank and went, hey, I know you've got a whole bunch of material around all of the rules-based things. Do you mind if I leverage it? And I put this, a rule book together in a easy-to-use format where you can click on the AR within the rule and it'll pop up, and you can, you don't have to try and click through 50 pages to go to the AR and then go back. And he's like, yeah, go for it. And then, so in amongst all of the rule books in there, there's also direct links. So, you read the offensive holding section, you can actually look at a training video on, that Frank's produced on offensive holding. And so being able to just give that resource to people, just go, hey, you know what? Go and you want to be able to read the rule book. It's at the moment it's the IFAF rule book, because obviously that's what I had access to. and branch that out into NCAA rule book or whatever else is out there available, and just to give additional resources to officials to leverage off and to provide alternative avenues for really understanding their rules and knowledge.
Again, Monty, that should be an applause or something for that. Because it takes time, as you know, time and consideration to put all that together, then link it and all that. Like, hey, so.
Well, not only applause, that's sportscollaboration.com.
Correct.
And it has everything from, look, I'm just looking at it right now. There's blog on it, a directory of just places to go, different rugby league, snooker. You just love rules.
So hold up. Do you guys have instant replay? Because that's why Monty's not, you know what I'm saying, the instant replay in your football over there? Is there somebody watching
we have
phone?
the allowance for it in our rule book, but we don't have the resources to use it. We might leverage it at our national championships or our international games. We're generally lucky to get, at our local level, we'll get two cameras and then manned by a club representative, so they're not zoomed in, they're sort of zoomed out, and they're a little bit distorted sometimes. But it's for us, it's a start. But when we get to the the international level games, there's a little bit more of a higher production, so we have the advantage
more
of
cameras.
Yeah.
Greg, so you coming over here multiple times now. I know you got to go to the USFL, but you've actually been to some real cool sports experiences here in the US. What have been some of the more highlight of sports venues or games that you've been able to attend since you came over, not the USFL?
Well, actually, the USFL actually had one tacked on at the end. So I was originally the second trip, the one the one that I went to the USFL. I was originally due to fly out. I didn't realize it, but it was the Saturday, which is the first day of the playoff for the USFL. And so leading up to the end of the season, I started to click and went, hang on, the USFL playoffs are in Canton, Ohio. Well, everybody knows the Pro Football Hall of Fame's in Canton, Ohio. So I messaged my wife one night and went, do you mind if I extend the trip by another 10 days? Her first reply was, what? Another camp? Question mark. And I went, sort of. The finals are in Canton, and that's pretty much all I had to write. And she's like, yeah, okay, you're fine. But she knows as much around that sort of side of football and what's there as I do. And she knows that the Pro Football Hall of Fame's there, and I'm like, hey, the finals here, and she's like, yeah, that reluctantly, but like, yeah, go for it. So being able to go
you have one cool wife.
Oh, absolutely.
It ain't no way in heck my wife gonna let me go somewhere for.
Yeah, he already there. Like what? He already there. Like what? Like really? Oh, all he can say. It was weather in Dallas that delayed my flight 10 days, right?
And then there's a 28-hour flight. Everybody will cool off.
Yeah, like
right. So my wife is extremely supportive of what I want to be able to do, and we've spoken about it numerous times as to what that may or may not involve as far as me being home and those sort of things. So I couldn't ask for anyone else to support through that. So obviously being able to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and being around that area, I was there for a week or so, was phenomenal. To have the opportunity to go around the Pro Football Hall of Fame with Craven, I jumped on with you and Dwayne and the crew and the tour that we had, and to have that opportunity was amazing. That whole USFL experience was, from a learning perspective, for me, was phenomenal. The first couple of weeks, I sat in the stadium and just watched the games from in the stadium and just watched the officials and watched how they interact with players. And we don't have things like red hats in here, so even just watching how a referee interacted with the red hat signals and all those sort of things was stuff that I was able to pick up. But after being there for a couple of weeks, obviously got to know Brandon and Tutar, and they introduced me to Steve Strimlin, and I've heard plenty of positive things about Steve, but he is amazing. The things that he will do for people is incredible.
Yes.
And he offered me the opportunity to go and sit up in the press box with him for the games. And
There you
for
go.
somebody that's coming from from where I've been in Australia, to have the opportunity to go and sit in the press box with him as he's evaluating the games, as he's watching them. There was a couple of NFL official trainers that were in there as well. So being able to network with those, but just watch the game from that perspective. And between Steve and I, we'd see a flag on the a flag on the field, and he would be looking at a different area, and he'd go, "Oh, what's that?" I could say, "Hey, that was holding," or "That was a false start." And between us, we could match what was up before the announcements were made, so he could. And that was incredible. And for Steve to do what he did for me for that whole trip that I was there, was it was and is amazing. And it speaks testament really to the quality of person that Steve is, and the things that he'll do for people.
Sound like you got a future in being a communicator.
Exactly.
Right.
Watch out, Monty. Watch out, Monty.
You know?
And
There's always room. Always
every-
room.
Hey, and every conference is gonna love him because they can't pay him.
Yeah.
Come and do it for free. So I watched the final in Canton and then flew home again. And the first thing when I went home is, all right, I want to go back. I'd love to go back this year, do a whole season, whether it's start at a high school level, start at a JUCO level, start at wherever. So I started reaching out to immigration lawyers, and the first thing they went was, yeah, you can't go and get paid because you can't go and do it, even if they didn't pay you, because it would normally get a paid. Even though it's a small game check, it's still classified as a paid, so you can't actually do that under your visa. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So you can't even come over here and volunteer because you're supposed to get paid for it.
Yes, exactly. So that's the visa requirements, and obviously then that's just like, well, that's hugely deflating. And I went, well, I already sort of started to book a trip, so instead of being and the immigration lawyer I was talking to said, oh look, I'd have to go for 10 weeks. She goes, well, you've just been for 8, to go back home and then go for another 10 is probably going to ask questions at border control. So I went, oh, okay, well, I'll shorten it down to 4 or 5 weeks. And so I then went back for another 4 to 5 week trip, and that one was just purely watching games. There was a couple of officials I know within LA that do varsity and junior varsity games, so I went and watched them. Caravano. I reached out to a couple of the Div 1 officials. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. And the ones that I didn't know were so welcoming as well. They're like, hey, look, do you want to come to our pregame dinner? Hey, do you want to come to our pregame? Do you want to come to a postgame? Do you want to? And to be able to be welcomed into the community of officials, I'll tell everybody, from where I was in March with hey, I don't know what everyone's going to take me as, to as soon as you meet anybody at any level, everybody is so welcoming and so encouraging. It's like, hey, you want to come and learn? Sure, well, more than happy to have you do this. More than happy to help you out. And every single crew that I was able to talk to on that second trip was incredible and amazing to be able to just sit and experience their pre-game routines, sit in on the pre-game, listen to how they do their pre-games, go and watch them work, and then send them follow-up questions after the games and go and ask for clarifications on how they communicate. Because when I was watching a couple of games, you can see when you're watching officials to see how they work, you tend to pick up a lot on all of the communication challenges that they have or the rules,
Right.
as opposed to the production that goes on TV. And so there's so many little things that you can see and pick up. Dead ball officiating. I was watching one of the games at the USFL, and the official actually took a player through the bench of the opposite team 15, 20 yards downfield and then brought him back on the field, as opposed to bringing him back through the bench field. So those little things that when you apply those into your game, are incredible things to do.
Yeah. The stuff they don't show on TV, right?
Yeah, and they don't teach so much at camps, but it's more of when you've been in that situation, oh, you should have done it this way. Whereas if you can actually go and watch a game live and watch how officials interact with players, interact with coaches, you don't necessarily need to listen to it. You can see from body language how people are communicating.
So
Yeah, that's
what,
the
that-
beautiful part of watching a game as an official is you can see the it's like a ballet of the game, like how like you said the officials communicate. Even that thing you said the red hat, because before it's like who's that guy with the red shirt on, and why does he control the game?
yeah.
Monty had the oven mitts on before.
That's right.
hey,
And he said,
hey, Monty thought that was gonna be his new career, boy.
He was going.
He was gonna be the red
I
hat
gave the
man,
game
man.
away. But I think something too is for you, which is encouraging, even for people who want to get into the game, is to be asking questions and always ping people, because there's guys here who talk about trying to get into football or trying to do what you're doing, but they're not putting the effort in because, yeah, like you said, you're coming from Australia. It was like, hey, man, this guy from Australia want to be on our pregame. Everybody's going to be welcoming. Whereas there's a guy down the street been talking about coming for every week, and like I invited him, he doesn't come. It's like, oh, I'm not going to put that effort in. But you coming, you taking a plane, like, hey, let's make sure he has a good time. And that's what this thing is about. This fraternity that we're in is always encouraging and bringing the next person up. Like, hey, because you probably stuff like you said, the pregame, all pregames are different, as you notice, right? If they've been working together a while, it's a little laid back, relaxed. Then if far as more technical aspect, but yeah, you picked up on a lot of things just in your little couple of months here that
Yeah,
some people don't get
absolutely.
to see.
And seeing the different dynamics of crews, and seeing them, I gotta say, a relaxed atmosphere of a pregame or a dinner, and then seeing them work out in the field, you can see the relationship that they've got with each other and how they interact, and the trust that they've got to allow. I know that and trust that you're going to look in your area, so therefore I can do my area. This whole year, I guess for me, was a step I had to consciously make. So back in Baltimore, after they did the first couple of talks, and then um where they invited me down the stage, they then went to a break. And normally I'm the sort of person that would just walk out the door, go and sit in the background and just have the break and then go to the next session. But I literally got probably a foot away from the door as everybody else was walking out, and consciously went to myself. I went, I'm not coming here for no reason. They had Dwayne and Ron, standing over in the opposite corner of the lecture theatre, and I went, I'm not going to come all this way and go and sit in the background. So I made the effort to go down and talk to Dwayne and then talk to Ron. And then, fortunately, on the second day, the game that I was due to officiate was the last game on the day. So there was 2 games before ours, triple header. The options are I could just sit in my hotel room and just go and do my game and then go home. And I went, I'm not, again, I'm not coming all this way to just sit in the background. I'm coming here to learn. So I'll go down to the field for the first game. I'll go and watch the officials. The clinicians let us stand next to them while the other officials were on the field, so we could listen in on the feedback and apply those. But what I did have the opportunity to do was talk to Dwayne for a quarter and a half on the sideline, talking to him about everybody knows about the call that they had in the national championship game, the fumble, forward pass, out of bounds. Talk to him through that, talk to him about some of his experiences, and just develop that rapport with him, so that when news filtered through later in whatever it was, April, May, June, when they announced people that had been promoted to the NFL, I emailed the organisers of Tom Beard and just went, hey, I don't have Dwayne's contact details. Can you just pass on my congratulations? Because I spent some time with him in Tom Beard, and I can obviously see the quality of person that he is. And then I got an email back directly from Dwayne to say, hey, look, appreciate it, and it was good to catch up with with you and Tom Beard. So he recalled me, but just to get that direct communication from him, is massive. And it took a bit of action on my part, and going out a little bit of my comfort zone initially through the introduction. But then from there, the opportunities and networking is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwayne's a great guy. I had the opportunity to work with him in the USFL. So yeah, he's a great guy and great official. So getting the opportunity to take advantage to sit down next to him, like you said, that's where a lot of people that attend the camps kind of mess up. They just go to the class and go to the game and don't really take in all of the other benefits that it comes to, getting to know people and sitting down and just getting all that different insight from the different officials that's available to you. So what's the coolest
But hold up,
venue? Oh,
Cravon.
go ahead.
But he did something that was different. He didn't ask them he was just trying to soak up information. He wasn't trying to, hey, Cravon, how do I get to the Pac-12? Right? He didn't do it that way.
Right.
He tried to get the right information. It's guys who come to them like, hey, man, I'm trying to get your job. So how do I get it? Right. So he had the right mentality.
The right mindset.
Out your comfort zone and try to work on getting better instead of, hey, I'm the next best thing. So, but yeah, great attitude.
But what has been the best sporting venue that you've been to in the States so far?
Oh, I mean, I was fortunate enough when I came. So after the USFL trip, I came home for about 4 or 5 weeks and went back for 5. And it was interesting through the first trip. I was also able to talk with, catch up with Brandon Cruz because they were doing the pure officiating. And I said to Brandon, I would really love to be able to come out and watch your first NFL game as hey, look, just to show my, the appreciation of everything you've done so far.
Wow.
I'd love the privilege just to come and watch you do your first game. So I started planning the trip, and I just went, I'm going to base myself in LA. It's a bit better time zones for Australia, and looking at some of the schedules between what games, college games were in LA and NFL games. I had a first couple of weeks. There was NFL games in LA, and the colleges, UCLA were playing and USC were around. So I'll base in LA, organized the flights and organized a ticket to the Rams-Bills opening season NFL game.
Oh, okay.
Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night game without knowing
that it was going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, also what officials were going to be appointed, because obviously they get appointed until closer to the season.
Right.
So I had to book, try to book flights and things out in advance to make sure that I had that opportunity to go. And I was just going to sit up in the crowd and do what I've done, did at the USL, just sit and watch the officials work and see how they work and do those sort of things. And then, interestingly enough, who walks out on the field as part of the warm up? Brandon walks out. So, it ended up, it was be able to be there to watch his first NFL game. For me, I felt, it was a privilege for me to be able to see them work, and then to be able to have the opportunity to, send him some questions and stuff after watching him work, and some things I saw in the game, and just went, hey, how did you deal with this, and pick up some bits and pieces. So that for me was a great achievement. SoFi Stadium itself is a phenomenal stadium. I also, while I was there, the first couple of weeks, UCLA were playing at home, so to be able to go to the Rose Bowl, not necessarily a bowl game, but just to be able to go to the Rose Bowl. Everybody knows all about the Rose Bowl stadium itself.
The history there.
The history there, and the incredible thing that they allow. They park on a golf course.
Yes.
Parking's there on a golf course. You rock up and you park on the golf course, and then you walk up to the stadium. I'm like, it's a good thing it doesn't rain, because you can just imagine the fairways of the golf course getting chewed up as people leave.
Oh yes.
Oh, it's soaked with beer anyway.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for this next your next trip over this next year?
Currently I've got a trip planned in
Can't
January.
tell you, Cravon, because then they'll be working. Shh.
Yeah, Cravon trying to mess up his
messing
money.
up your stuff.
Hey, come on. Hey, this Cravon,
He's going to come sit in the stands and watch for another year.
Yeah, he's just coming to watch games. TBD.
One of the officials I know works with the LA Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders. Sorry, we're going to come over to another official I know is a Chiefs fan. Raiders are playing Chiefs last game of the regular season, so I'm going to come over to Vegas and watch that. Interesting enough, timing-wise, the national championship game's on the Monday afterwards, so I'm going to go from Vegas to LA and watch the national championship game. I'm in the US. It's not that far to go back to LA.
Is that SoFi?
Yeah. So
Damn.
as soon as I saw that in SoFi, I went, all right, let's go, go back to there. I've organised tickets for that. And then there's a Southern California official clinic basically the weekend after that. So I'm like, well, I'll stay in LA. I'll go to that camp and then come home. Tom Beard, I've looked at going back into Tom Beard in March. There'll be a pure fish heading camp around there that I'll try and get to as well.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, the journey and the traveling that you've been able to do. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, you are showing a lot of officials the dedication that it takes, but still having, like Ashanti said, the right mindset and attitude of just trying to get better day by day, but getting some amazing experiences on top of it. That's absolutely incredible.
But you can't fly Spirit internationally. You know what I'm saying? No Spirit
How about
Airlines.
Frontier?
Yeah,
Frontier
none of that.
Frontier
Like, I don't know I don't recommend any low budget international flight, right? Right. So,
Yeah.
if somebody what position are you with this in Europe? Are you what's your normal position?
We don't have at this stage, because we're still it's the initial candidates program, initial cut. There's no we haven't been given our positions.
Okay.
Back here in Australia, I generally do umpire, referee. We generally go with a 5-man mechanics most of the time. And being sort of the more experienced official here, 90% of my roles at the moment are referee roles. As soon as I can do a center judge role, I'll jump into center judge. I was just like, any of those middle three are the three that I enjoy the most.
Okay.
Saying that though, if they wanted to put me anywhere on the field, even as a clock operator, even anything,
the soft sell.
I'm like, put me anywhere. I don't really, don't really care where I go on the field. On the field, give me some feedback. Give me some.
I think I still got some red hat gloves too. I'll pass
Hey,
it.
I don't mind red hat.
How you doing, Monty? What is
That's
this?
right. That's right. Oh, you got to count it down. Count it down. 30, 15 to the 5th.
Interesting enough, when I was back there for the last trip, one of the officials that I met on a previous on one of the camps in Boise officiates high school in Texas. So he teed me up with his local high school crew. He's just recently promoted to the WAC, so he was off doing a game with the WAC, so he wasn't around. I spent a weekend in Dallas because I went, well, I'm in the US. I got to do Friday night football in Dallas, or in Texas, just to experience that. So I was talking to the referee on the phone as I got to the field. He met me at the gate, walks into the change room, opens up the door and goes, "Hey, everybody, here's that penalty recorder. Have you got a radio?" And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the penalty recorder. And just being able to listen to their communication live on the radio, with the experience that I've had, 90% of the penalty I'd had recorded down before they even got onto reporting it, because I'd see bits and pieces. I'm like, well, that's got to be a holding, or that's got to be pass interference, and you can 90% of the times you can work out what number the player is, because they're obviously around the action. So
they record penalties in high school.
Yeah,
man. He was in Texas. He probably saw some better stadiums at the high schools in Texas than he did at some of these small college balls that he went to.
Man, that's crazy.
To be able to have those experiences just from, that's an official that I ended up, we were at the Boise camp. His original roommate ended up pulling out. He didn't have a room. I'm like, I posted on the initial chat that we had. I'm like, hey, if somebody wants to stay, so he contacted me and went, hey, you mind having a route to look for a roommate? I'm, yeah, I don't mind. Come on in and give a chance to network and meet somebody. And then through that, obviously, he's like, hey, officiating in Texas, and teed me up. So, the opportunities that are there are incredible and amazing. Just by an off chance, or you're just putting yourself out there to say, hey, look, happy to meet somebody, happy to do anything just to try and improve.
All right.
Greg, I mean, your story is, crazy.
It's
the
crazy.
Adventures that you are having, but it
It's a
truly
lifetime.
yeah,
But
it
he
truly
living his best
shows.
life.
It's his best
Exactly.
life.
It truly shows when you are
Right.
passionate about something, go after it, chase
Gotta
it
be a
as
little
far as
crazy.
you can chase it.
Gotta be a
you
little
gotta
crazy.
just a little bit, but it's been cool, the opportunities I've been able to, hang out with you and stuff and get to know you. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I hope we can see each other again sometime when you're back here in the States. Actually, I would prefer if the Pac-12 or somebody would send me back to Australia again. So now that I know somebody over there, I can hang out and see some better parts of the town.
Well, I think I'll be touring Australia probably for the next year with the amount of officials that are like, "Hey, can I come over and can you show me X, Y, Z?"
Exactly. You may have to become a tour guide for us all.
Yeah.
But at least he can get paid that way.
Right.
He can recoup some of that money. Right. So
Right. Well, Greg, we got everyone's favorite part of the show.
Oh Lord.
It's a thing called Under Review.
We apologize for the sorry music that we still can't get rid of.
Well,
the budget doesn't give us new music yet. So
sponsored by PCH Street. Anytime you're in California, Greg, come on.
Hey,
we got
what happened to that other unofficial sponsor we had? That fella, do it still exist?
PCH Street?
Nah, the other one.
Come on. Don't worry about any of that. Sponsored by PCH
The funny
Street.
money. What happened to the funny money?
That's still good. That's still good. And money always good. Money good. Money good. Anytime you're in California, Greg, just hit us up. I'm sure we can get you some games too. Shoot, man, there's games all over. Here we go, Greg. I'm gonna ask you one question, and then just off the top of your head, give us a quick answer. Here we go. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Oh my.
All right, Greg. With all the things that you've done and all the people that you've talked to, what career accomplishment has made you the most proud?
Well, I think that the most proud at the moment would be the initial selection to the World Cup in Mexico.
Whoa.
So back in 2019, that was the Youth World Cup down in Mexico. We had we were down there for about 10 days. Another time I might tell you about my interesting trip. It took us 40 plus hours from Australia to Mexico to get there because we had delays and things with flights. So if you thought Baltimore was long, our Mexico flight scenario was even more interesting. When you leave Australia, you get over the water and they go, due to the weather in Dallas, we're going to have to circle. We don't have enough fuel. We're going to stop in LA. We're going to refuel, but you can't get off the plane. So we'll be there for an hour. We'll take back off and land in Dallas. And so by the time we landed and got off the plane in Dallas, we'd been on the plane for 19 hours. So then we missed our connection flight to Mexico, slept at the airport, managed to then catch a flight from Dallas to Houston, then from Houston down to Mexico, and got there 40 hours after I left Australia. One of the guys that was traveling with us was traveling from another state. It would end up being about 46 hours from when he left home to when he got to Mexico. So that was an interesting start to the trip. But we had 3 games in 8 days, I think it was. We had one game, we'd have 3 days off between a game, and then we'd have another game, 3 days off. And being officials, you don't have to worry about practice. You don't have to worry about recovery. So apart from doing some post-game reviews and some pre-game reviews, and you've got days free, you get to be a tourist. So a couple of times there, just going for a walk in around Mexico City. We had a lot of Mexico local officials with us, so they took us to the temples, they took us out, took us to various areas. So to be able to do the football side of things, learn from people like Bill, and get phenomenal teaching and reviews and evaluations, and the encouragement around philosophy, and also do a lot of experience a lot of the Mexican area. Was pretty incredible. So that's probably the most proud, and that's the start of, I guess, the main start of my journey.
That's awesome.
Hold up. So you telling me You couldn't go from Australia straight to Mexico. You had to go to Dallas.
Correct. We had to fly. We had to fly to Dallas, and then we had to fly from Dallas down to Mexico. So it's a whatever it was, a 14, 15-hour
Oh my
flight from
God.
Sydney to Dallas, and then it was going to be a 2.5-hour layover originally, and then flights down to Mexico. We missed that, obviously, and ended up sleeping at the airport. So,
Yeah, I know
Wow.
you're paying on being canceled. Dallas
Wow.
Fort Worth
Yeah.
has a lot of cancellations that you really don't understand unless you fly it through there.
Yeah, you got plenty of experience of hanging out in the
Yeah.
Dallas airport, huh, Shante?
Now other places, I know I could never get to Dallas. Oh, wow. So I gotta go. Play the music, Monty.
All right.
So
Why
Greg,
correct?
you talk about
It's in
American
Texas.
football and Australian football and just regular football. So why didn't you pursue Australian rules football as an official?
When I started playing, interesting enough, when I started playing American football, 6'2", probably 150 pounds, wringing wet when I first started. But I don't know what it was. Whether it's I enjoy, I guess, numbers a lot too. So the statisticians and the stats around American football, the ability just to go out and just be told, run this route, obviously with a couple of adjustments and things, but being part of the American football team and just the way it was structured just got me interested in it. I played Australian rules football when I was in high school. I played for a year. Broke a collarbone twice. Broke it once. Went back 6 to 7 weeks later. I think I got through one game and then got tackled again and broke it again. And I went, well, I'm not playing American. I'm not going to play Australian rules football anymore. Grew up playing soccer. Obviously, the pathway to soccer, there's so many people playing it. It's a lot harder to obviously move up. American football here in Australia, smaller numbers, smaller opportunities, greater opportunities to for growth, both as a player and as official. Lower number pools. But from when I started playing it, when I started officiating it after the first couple of years, just loved it.
Okay.
Love the way it's structured. Everything to do with it, and then the opportunities of international travel. I've also had the opportunity to go to Tahiti. It was 3 weeks before. 3 weeks before I went to Mexico, I got offered to go to Tahiti and referee their bowl game.
That should have been your
Right.
answer
That's
for under review, like going to Mexico, Tahiti.
Right.
Like,
Go
you
to
just got
Tahiti.
this.
Right.
Your priorities messed up. Like,
Yeah, so I did the bowl game in Tahiti. Had the privilege of being able to award the trophy to the winning team, and it's all the guy that does a lot of things in Tahiti actually played for the Hawaii Warriors at college, and he's living there, and he's obviously there's a couple of them looking at doing things with Tahiti, but to be able to go there, literally got home from Tahiti, and then 2.5, 3 weeks later, I then flew out to Mexico, and at that stage, I think we had 4 or might have had all 5 kids. So my wife obviously got used to my travels relatively quickly. But to have those opportunities, to be able to go to places like Bologna in Italy, and then come and experience what I've come and experienced in the US, I couldn't have asked for anything else. And there'd be very few sports that would allow you to do
all
those
that.
Sure.
type of experiences.
Well, Greg, I am absolutely jealous. I just want to have your travel schedule. Just one time. So I am jealous. But anytime you need somebody, to hang out with you, I'll go on the trips. I just don't want that 40-hour journey from.
Oh no, his football travel different than mine. My football travel got me to Mississippi, right? So ain't no exotic locations. Shreveport and all that. Like, ain't nothing exotic about my football travel experience.
Hey man, it's something always exotic about the great locations in the SWAC. But Greg, thank you for joining us on the show. We look forward to seeing you down the road, and thank you for listening. Inspiring us to kind of keep going on this whole thing, because we were there in Baltimore, and it's like, hey, somebody's listening to this. It's absolutely amazing that it's carrying over for everybody. But man, keep it up. Keep it up.
International.
Yeah, and if there's anything you need, hey, you have my contact information. Feel
Can't
free
pay
to
him.
reach out. Yeah,
Can't pay him, Cravon. You can't pay him. See, Monty, you see how he trying to set my man up? You can't pay.
Well, hopefully in future years you can. So that, you know, I guess there's avenues that I can look at and that I'm looking at the moment to be able to come over. Essentially, it basically means things like green cards and proper visas. But there are some options that I've got to look into that I need to develop. And obviously, you know, the aim is to come over to the US. So I need to make sure I've got the right legalities in place because I don't want to come over and, you know, get the old blacklist and those sort of things because I've done things the wrong way. So
Right.
if that means delaying it for, you know, whatever it needs to get delayed for, to make sure it gets done properly, you know, I'll do that. You know, I've obviously got opportunities to do various other things, and I can always still come over for camps and things. So
There you
there's
go.
still plenty of opportunities to learn
Awesome.
until things line up. But,
All right.
yeah.
Well, once again, thank you for joining us on the Unofficial Lounge. And hey, hopefully one day we'll see you down under.
Man, thanks for the opportunity. Come on. You know, I had a ball.
The next time you're traveling up the picturesque Pacific Coast Highway, join us for happy hour at PCH Street Salon and Wine Lounge. The heart of the Pacific Coast Highway is in Lompoc, California.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember to please like and subscribe, as the Unofficial Lounge is available on all your podcast streaming outlets, including Apple, Google, Spotify, and Anchor. We look forward to you joining us next time in the Unofficial Lounge.